It was a bright sunny morning, and I thought I'd go back to the bee park just to see how things were going. Unfortunately, there was a roar in the bee park, a roar that I had heard many times before. No, I have to be in the studio around 1. It can't happen today. But there was hive number 5 doing their fire drill. I watched as a cloud of bees began to fill the air. Oh boy. So I didn't have my camera with me, unfortunately, so I just followed the swarm, and they drifted out of the park and into the woods, ignoring all the swarm traps, and settled on a scrawny crabapple tree right in the middle of muck land. It's nothing but roots and soggy soil, and you try to set up a ladder and the ladder keeps sinking into the soil. It's just not a pretty sight. They settled on a branch that was somewhat vertical and somewhat strong, kind of hard to shake. Oh, well, you know these bees, they're never quite going to make it easy for you. With a new box underneath, I began shaking the branch and trying to dislodge as many bees into the box as I could, and then went about scooping whatever clusters I would find and settling them into the box. At some point, I must have managed to get the queen in there, because the bees that were in the air were settling more on the box than on the branch, which is always a good thing. The ladder was beginning to teeter at quite an angle. I had to somehow shore it up, because there were still a lot of bees up on the branch, and I had to go up and get them. Oh, that's when the trouble started. I did what I could to scoop the bees off of the side of the box. There was a possibility that the queen was sitting on the side, and put them in the top of the box. But something had to be done about that branch. Maybe I could bring the branch down as compared to me going up on the branch. So far, so good, although I dumped a few on the ground. They came up off the ground, though, and got into the box, and I was able to shake the branch in there. But now the ladder was at the point where it was ready to fall over. I had to stabilize the ladder somehow. Yes, that really happened. I was pleasantly surprised in that most of the bees actually did come up off the ground and fly back into the box. Boy, that was a disaster, and I was bound and determined for there to be no more disasters, though there were a couple of very close calls. I left the box be for, I don't know, about an hour, and then loosely closed it up and put it in a net bag and took it back to the park. It was a hot day, so I didn't want to snap the lid together, but I also didn't want to leave them wide open. Well, only one stinger to the nose, where the veil was touching. In any case, once again, a reminder, go down and click that like and subscribe to our channel, because that's the way we get more of these videos to you. Thank you. Well, a few hours later, there's a couple of bees buzzing around, but I don't see any types of clusters or lumps of bees, so I think we're in good shape. It was time to get these girls into the hive. That's why it's a good idea to have spare equipment sitting around the bee yard, just in case you have such an event. One of the tricks of preventing a swarm from absconding is taking a frame of brood from another hive that has eggs, larvae, and capped, and moving that over into the swarm hive after shaking the bees off on it. It serves as an anchor. It seems to flip some type of switch in their mind where, one moment they're still thinking about maybe finding a new location to fly to, and then they see the open brood and they kind of go, ooh, here's something we better tend to. So I've used this technique, many, many years ago when I was keeping bees, and I started using this technique when we started keeping bees again. And so far it's 100%. You never know what bees are going to do, but they seem to really congregate around that frame of brood. So Step one was to put a frame in there. As you can see, I have the swarm in a nylon net bag. I didn't want to close up the lid on that nuke box because I thought they wouldn't get enough air. It was going to be a hot day, and for the hours that it sat out there, actually I had a piece of plywood that I laid over the area to shade them. As a footnote, that crabapple tree, that scrawny thing, this is the second year in a row the swarm went to that tree. Now, it's too weak to put a swarm trap in, but I may still try to devise a way of getting one in there since they seem to like to go to that tree. Well, it was time to move the frames over, and unfortunately for the most part I blocked the shot on this one. Sometimes you get so wrapped up on what you're doing, the video is secondary. Interestingly enough, most of the bees were clustered on the inside lid of the box and the outside of the box as compared to the frames themselves. Why? Who knows, but I think it had to do with the heat and the fact that there was ventilation on the one side and there was ventilation in the roof, whereas the box itself might have been getting a little too hot inside. Between the capture and when I actually put the bees in the hive, I did actually make it to the studio on time, and that was a good event, but it made for a very busy day. So the first thing to go in was the lid, which probably had about 1.5 pounds of bees on it itself. There was another, pound and a half or so on the frames themselves, and probably yet another pound or so in the box. So there's no gentle way of doing this. You just have to, bang them in there. And after those guys were in, I wanted to shake the net. And ultimately, I laid everything out in front of the hive. And you can actually, if you look at the entrance, you can see them filing in. So they seemed to approve of what I was doing. There's some small areas in these cardboard boxes at either end that they love to hide in, so I had to fold those out and get them out of there as well. But I was surprised when I looked at the boxes afterwards. There really was only 2 or 3 bees, so they did get shaken in the hive pretty well. The next step was to add a pollen patty, or at least half a pollen patty. We knew we didn't have a workforce that was going to be bringing anything in that fast. When they swarm, they tend to consume a lot of the resources that are in the hive that they leave. So it's not like they're starving, but, that, and you want to get some liquid feed on them. So I put a feeder screen over the box and then added a jar of liquid feed, which is basically sugar water with a little bit of, honeybee healthy mixed in.
So we have 2 big questions. The first is, did we get the queen in here? I think we did, because they weren't clustering elsewhere. And the second is, will they stay? That's why we put the frame of brood in there from another hive. Hopefully that serves as an anchor. Once they see open brood that needs to be tended to, chances are they'll stick around a little bit better. We've dumped most of the bees from the box into here. We've got the reducer set for small. And now time will tell whether this is hive number, well, it's in position number 3, but it's the 7th hive. So will it take? I think so. Is the queen fertile? Chances are, when they swarm like that, it's normally the old queen that's taking off. But you never know. So we give them a little comb to play with, build out, and we just hope for the best. So, another adventurous day in Buzz Park.